Hello and welcome to Codebase Alpha. This is our Monday late stream, and I see we've still already got some people in the chat, so say hello in chat. Warm welcome to everyone who's joined so far. And today we're going to be continuing our investigation into GraphQL. So we're going to continue to build out the GraphQL point that we've been integrating into the Dev Chatter Dev Streams project. Chris Jones, welcome. Knight 0323, welcome as well. And Coded Beard, good to see you. Pure Snable as well, Ancient Code, and we're certainly getting the regulars in, so great, fantastic. So Pure Snable, you got sick of VS Studio launch reruns, yeah. I can imagine. So it's, there's only so much of that kind of a slick presentation you can stand in. You want to come and see some derps, people live coding. So that's the attraction. That's what I watch live coders for anyway, just to see how people actually cope when things go wrong and the strategies that they undertake. So welcome everyone. So if you're not a follower, you can see we're only 12 away from our target of 100 followers, so would really much appreciate a follow if you are currently following. It's the best way to keep in touch and to be notified when the stream goes live, especially if we do any kind of random bonus ones. The news that I've got for next Monday is that the plan is that Mark Miller of Code Rush fame is going to be joining us on stream. So you may know Mark. He has a most fantastic stream where he does all kind of wonderful things with graphics, and he's chief scientist over at Dev Express, and he's going to be joining us to have a look at Code Rush, the product. Pure Snable should have streamed today from work when our streaming pipeline blew up. It was hectic for a while. Yeah, I've had a hectic day at work as well. We've had some requirements that came in, and right at the last minute it turns out that the user story that had been written wasn't actually the requirement at all. But luckily I managed to rescue that. So yes, it's been a bit of a hectic day. So I hope you're ready for some GraphQL. So last time we left off having just implemented a feature where we could get the next stream for each channel. So it was this code here that's highlighted on the screen there, and if we run that up we can see what that does. So I'll just run the project up, and we'll go over to our UI playground and just have a reminder of what it does. So there we go. So it's an initial start, so it's going to be a bit slow. There we go. So over to our UI/playground, and we've got our we've got a query here, and let's just run that. You can see the kind of thing we get. So we get all of our channels and their Twitch status, there's information about their Twitch channels, and any tags that they've got. So, for example, here's Gareth Hubble stream. Its time zone is in Europe, London. He's an affiliate, and he streams F# Rust in English. We should need to add C++. Rambling Geek, welcome to the chat. Good to see you. So we need to add C++ to that because Gareth actually streamed some C++ on Sunday, which was very interesting. I've never used it. I've done some C back in the day, but I've forgotten everything about that. So I'm C# all the way at the moment. Okay, so what we added last time was the ability to actually bring back the next stream. So if we just type any letter really, we can get this context sensitive help. We can get next stream, and on the next stream we can get the UTC start time of the next stream, for example, and we can get the end time as well. And these are the start and end times in UTC. Okay, we run that, and you can see here for Dev Chatter we get 1800 to 2000 hours Zulu, which is UTC. For Codebase Alpha we get Wednesday, so that's 1500 to 1700 UTC. and so on for the rest of the channels that have actually got any schedules. So you can notice here that Code Rush has got no schedule, and Honest Dan Games has got no schedule either. Neither has Rambling Gear. There's just data that's missing from our database. Brandon, welcome to the stream, and the Michael Jolly, welcome as well. Good to see you both. So had some fun on Michael Jolly's stream. Was it last night? I think it was last night. It was interesting. So I was lurking most of that, so that was fun. Okay, so what we're going to do next is to look at the data loader pattern for this, because the problem with this query is that that's going to be run for every channel that we bring back. So at the moment we're bringing back all channels. If we had 50 channels, this query would be run 50 times, and that's in sharp contrast to the other queries we've got here. So for example, this one, which brings back the schedule, if we had 50 channels, we would run two queries. We'd run one to get the 50 channels, and then this one query once, because we're using the data loader pattern. And what that's doing is basically providing us with a cache. So it will go and get all of the schedules for all of the streams, and then it creates a lookup cache. So then we can just bring those back in one query. So very much more efficient. So what we need to do is bring this query into that kind of into that realm, really. And this doesn't do it because we're using the CRUD repo, as you can see here. So we're using getAll from the repo that is already built into the DevStreams site. So what I thought we should do is to follow the same kind of pattern that we've been using for these other data loader queries, and that's basically to set up a using one of these services that we've got. So if I stop this and we pop over to the Infra Dapper project, this is where we've got all our Dapper implementations of the services that we're using. So the example you've got here, this is the Dapper CRUD repository, and we've got the Twitch channel service, which has got the Dapper implementation of that, and over here we've got session lookup. Okay, and this is what we're interested in. So we're trying to find sessions. Now we want to find the first session in the future. We don't want, to get 5 back. This is the next stream query, so we always want to get the next stream. So what we're going to need to do is to actually build some SQL, which will do that for us. So I think the best thing to do is go and pop over to actual SQL Server Management Studio and have a look at what we've actually got to work with. So if I select star from, it's called stream sessions. We run that. You can see what we're getting back is basically a list of channels. So this is channel 1, which is dev chatter, and then a UTC start time and a UTC end time. And you can see it just carries on. Then we get channel number 2 eventually, which is Codebase Alpha, and you can see this has been created kind of ahead of time. When we set up the schedule in the DevStreams website, it went and calculated all of the streams in the future for the next 52 weeks, basically. So these are all pre-calculated. They're all in UTC, and but the way they're represented within our application isn't as UTC specifically. It's acted as a node time type called instant. So that's what those are. Those are instants in time. They're just being represented here as UTC. Okay, so what we're going to need to do is try and bring back the minimum time for each channel, where that time is in the future. Okay, so the best way of going about that. So okay, if we just have a look at this query, if we select channel ID and the minimum make that capital so it's obvious it's a function. The minimum UTC, what do I call it? UTC start time, and we can alias that as UTC start time. Okay, so we get that from Steam sessions, yes, and we want a nice where clause where UTC start time is greater than get the UTC date. So if we look at what that does for us, we can actually then group that, can't we? We can group that by channel ID. And let's have a look what we get back from that. Okay, so we get a channel ID and the minimum start time, which is in the future. So this is Dev Chatter next streaming on the 9th, which is tomorrow. Codebase Alpha streaming on the Wednesday. And then we've got, I can't remember what these are. I think this is this might be Gareth, or this might be Gareth. This is Gareth here, and I can't remember who number 4 is. I think that's actually is that Noopcat? I think that might be Noopcat, who of course isn't streaming at the moment. And I don't know if you caught on Sunday at Noopcat's normal time. It was Robert Tables who was kind of hosting a show at that time, and he was very worried about doing it. He was very, very good. I was lurking on that as well, so congratulations to Robert Tables for stepping into some very big shoes and presenting his show in Noopcat's slot. I think that's a really great idea that Noopcat has invited various streamers to kind of fill her slot on that Sunday, because a lot of people kind of look forward to that show. So okay, so we've got basically what we want, but what we want is the whole of the data. We don't just want the channel ID and the start time. So what we can do there is to start to select a lot more data out. So if we say select, and we'll give it alias from Stream Sessions, stream not Steam, Stream Sessions, and we're going to do a join there, and this is going to be, we alias that to B, and we're going to say join that on a.utc start time is equal to b.utc start time. So let's spell this correctly, shall we? UTC start time. UTC start time. Okay, what's that? Oops, start time. And what that should give us is basically the same information here, except we'll have all of the rows, all of the columns. So from all the columns from Stream Sessions. So let's give that a run. And indeed, we do get that. But we've got some duplicates down the bottom here. And that is because we've got the same data in there twice. Okay, so we need to we're going to want a distinct on that, aren't we? Yes, that looks correct. So we're going to distinct that. Okay, let's have a look what that gives us. There we go. So let's have a look. So channel 1 Dev Chatter tomorrow at 1800 UTC. Myself at 1500 UTC on Wednesday. Noopcat 1600 UTC, and that's Gareth Hubble 1800 UTC on that's tomorrow again. Okay, so that seems to be working good. Okay, so we're going to use this query. I'm just going to pop it off screen so that I can refer to it over there. And we're going to use that in creating a new query here. Now let's pop over back to our channel types, which is over here. Just close that. Okay, so channel types. What we'll do is I'll just grab this piece of code and comment it out, and we'll just move it out of the way. And we want so we're going to want pretty much the same information. Let's just grab the first row. And once again, we're going to need to follow the same patterns we've got here. So we've got, as you can see, we've got a resolver, and we're calling up this get or add batch loader. Now it's distinct from the get or add collection batch loader, because in a very similar manner to the way a Twitch channel is a one-to-one relationship with the channel, there's only one next stream per channel. So we don't want to use the collection batch loader. We're not getting a lookup of lists, we're getting a lookup of single objects. So very much more, in this case actually not going to be a lookup. It's similar to the way we're doing things here with the Twitch channel. It's actually going to be a dictionary. So the key is going to be the channel ID, and the value is going to be the record from the stream session database table. Okay, so once again we go through our pattern, which you should be getting used to by now, which is having this resolve, and that's got a context which we're going to exploit. And oops, let's tidy up. In here we've got this this same kind of syntax. So we're going to use we're going to create a loader, and that is going to use the data loader context accessor, which we are having injected into the oh, Ed Charbonneau, welcome. Oh, a wonderful blazer emoji you've got there. It's fantastic. I love that. I don't know who did that for you, but that's really good. Unless you did it yourself, of course, it's even more impressive, because I'm a bit of a painter, but I'm not an artist, in digital artist, so I have all my stuff done by other people. Okay, so let's. So I was just going to show you that we're having the accessor. This is a data loader context accessor, which is being injected in for us. Oh, Ed, you made the emoji, but someone do. Sorry, I'm just going to move this out of the way. Someone do the high res version. Oh, right, I'm really impressed. It's very good. Okay, so we're going to use this accessor to give us access to the data loader. So accessor here, and we're going to use on there is a context, and we're going to use the same method. We're going to use this get or add batch loader. So get or add batch loader. This is basically the caching that we're going to be using. So get or add batch loader, and that's going to be so if we hover over there, you can see, I believe, well, don't seem to be able to see it yet. Let's type in what we need. So we got the key of what we're getting, the dictionary we're getting back is going to be an integer, so that's the channel ID, and the value is going to be a stream session, like that. Okay. And if we just kind of, once again, if I see if we can hover over here, I don't know if you can read that on screen, but this is basically we need to be passing in next. So we've got basically what's called a string. It's a string and it's a loader key. So it's just a name which is used to access the batch loader cached data. So it's basically a cache key. So we can make up whatever we want there. And I think what we'll use is what should we say, get channel next stream. Okay, and then if we hover over again, the next thing we need is it's a delegate. So we need a function which it takes a list of integers, which is a list of channel IDs, and it returns us a task of iDictionary of int and stream sessions. Okay, so what we can do there is to we need to call the method that we're going to create to actually bring that back, and that's going to be on our Dapper session lookup. Okay, we haven't got that here yet, and Dapper session lookup, if we go over to that, that's of type stream session service. So that's what we want to inject into our constructor now. So we grab that, and let's just tidy this up a bit. So we don't need a repo anymore. We're going to replace that, and we're going to have a Dapper. What do we call it? A Dapper session lookup. Okay, and let's replace this. In fact, we probably don't need to actually store it in a private variable there. We can use it, consume it directly, and we no longer need a repo here. Okay, you can see here that this is the only thing that actually used it, that repo there. And we're going to replace this, but with this new code. All right, so we want the Dapper session lookup, and we need to create a method on that, and we'll simply call it get channel next stream, the same as we've got there. And this doesn't exist yet, so let's go and sort that bit out. So Dapper session lookup is where we need to create that method, and that implements the iStream session service interface. Now, all interfaces are defined in the core project. That's over here. So here's our service interfaces. Here's stream session service. So we need to add the method into here. So this is going to be, now if we go back and have a look, it's going to be a task of iDictionary into stream session is what's going to come back. I don't know if you can actually see that, but hopefully you can just about read the kind of help there that we're getting from Visual Studio. Okay, so over here we're going to get we want a task of iDictionary int and stream session. Okay, and we gave it a name, didn't we? I can't remember what we called it now. We called it channel type get channel next stream. So let's call it lookup, because that's kind of the pattern we've been using. Over here we've got down here we've got get channel schedule lookup, get channel tags lookup. So we just use that name, I think, just to try and bring a bit of consistency in, and we can always change it later if it's not suitable. And that needs to take in, so if you remember the delegate that we were creating, it takes in an IEnumerable of integers. So we'll set that up like that, and that's going to be basically our channel IDs. So we need to bring in some namespaces. There we go. And well, this is going to be channel IDs. Okay. So let's go over to our Dapper session lookup and implement that. Okay. So there we go. I'm gonna grab that and just bring it a bit further up to the top so we can work on it. Now, last time there was really kind of, well, it wasn't last time. It was last Monday, I think it was a really cringeworthy bit where I actually managed to work on the wrong method. So let's hope that doesn't happen. So this is going to be an asynchronous method, and we need to implement something in here. So okay. So what we can do is let's create this SQL, and I'm just going to basically create some SQL, which is basically the same as what we had we worked on in SQL Server Management Studio. So this is select a.star from stream sessions. Okay. And we want to join. We're going to join something called B, and in B we're going to have select channel ID, and then min of UTC start time. Right. And we're going to alias that as UTC start time. So that's going to be the next stream date, basically. And then we're going to have that's going to be from stream sessions. We're going to have a where clause. Let's just create that casing. Just going to move this microphone a bit closer. There we go. From stream sessions, and then we got a where clause here, and the where clause was where UTC start time is greater than get UTC date. But we need an and as well, because we need to constrain this by the list of channel IDs that we're going to be passed in. So you can see here, up here, we're going to be passing in a list of channel IDs, or enumerable channel IDs, so we need to constrain it by that as well. So and to channel ID in, and then there's going to be a variable channel IDs, and in Dapper we signify the variable by this at symbol. If your neighbour wasn't aware that you could join on expression, usually use a CTE. Yeah, you can do the same thing. We want it distinct. This is just, I mean, my SQL goes back quite a way. So I was an Ingress. Does anyone remember Ingress database? I was an Ingress DBA for many years, a long time ago, more than 20 years ago. And so some of my SQL isn't that up to date, if I'm perfectly honest. But I'll get by with it because it's all still valid SQL. But there's often better ways of doing stuff than I generally use. And I'm going to group this by channel ID. And that's why I have a DBA in my team. So I basically hand over all that kind of stuff to DBAs, more modern DBAs, and say, like, this is what I've written. Go and kind of make that work nice and fast. Yeah, DBAs. DBAs. They've kind of be. I don't know. DBAs have to be a lot more to them these days. They tend to be kind of BI specialists or whatever, you know. Don't tend to just do pure DBA stuff anymore. I don't know why that is. I guess things like SQL Server don't have that much DBA stuff to be done, apart from when they go wrong, in which case then you dive in and kind of sort out all the indexes and things. So, but I know that I've used Oracle in the past, and that's quite heavyweight, and you need the DBA for that, certainly. DBAs are worth their weight in gold when you need them, and that's really kind of the definition of what a good DBA is. So we're going to group by channel ID. We've got our B there. The join is going to be on a.utc start time, and that was equal to B UTC start time. Okay, so you can just compare that with the code we wrote over here. Yep, that looks pretty much the same. Yep. we need an A over here for the correlation name, the alias. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with that. We'll keep this open in case we have to debug this statement. Okay, so we need to now to just grab this DB connection stuff here. Okay, so when we're using Dapper, we have a using, and it's going to be an IDB connection, and called connection, and that is going to be equal to a new SQL connection, and that is going to be based on the DB settings, which are over here. Let's just pull that in. The DB settings is coming from our config and basically has the database connection string in it. Okay, and then we want to say for our next stream, streams, it's plural, we're going to get more than one back, and this is going to be connection dot query, and our query is going to be based on stream session. That's what we're going to be bringing back, and then we're going to basically with that piece of SQL. So the query is going to take some SQL as a string, and then an object, an anonymous object with the parameters in. Yeah, so Night 0323, yeah, you're absolutely right. We can have factories to generate all this kind of stuff. The reason why I'm not going there is that I want to leave this kind of refactoring to Brendan Enrick over at Dev Chatter. So we kind of, this is a fork of his project we are kind of building our GraphQL into, and what I don't want to get into is actually refactoring all his code on his behalf, because he have different ideas of how things should be done. I've already talked to him about consolidation and that kind of stuff, and I think it's best that on this stream that what I do is implement the GraphQL API in following the same pattern as he's used, and the idea is that he can then refactor it, build the factories and all that kind of stuff on his stream rather than me. Obviously, I could go through it and change everything, and it might not be how he wants to do stuff, and I don't want to kind of tread any toes. He's got streams going into the future all based on this project as well. So our aim is to kind of get enough done so we can submit a PR to get a GraphQL endpoint, a query-only GraphQL endpoint into dev streams, and then we can then return to the Alexa skill project we've been working on for quite a lot of time, re-implement that using the GraphQL API endpoint rather than doing direct queries. So we're going to exploit all of these queries we've written through the Alexa endpoint, and then once we've done that, and that's all kind of tidied away and actually implemented within dev streams, what we can do is start to come back and look at things like mutations and subscriptions, which are other things which GraphQL supports. But as I say, really, I don't want to kind of tread on Brendan's toes and refactor his project. Just want to implement what we're doing, really. So I'm following the same pattern. So Brendan's got this kind of same pattern all through the code, so I'll just use that. Okay, so we've got an anonymous object here, and this is going to be how we specify what this variable here is. So it's a channel IDs is going to be equal to channel IDs, which is our input parameter. Okay, and then we can return next streams, and we're going to change that into a dictionary, and the dictionary is going to be keyed on channel ID. Okay, so we've got an asynchronous method here, so we better make this async. So we can do a query async, and we need to then we need to await that. And just two listed at that point. Okay, so that's pretty much the same pattern as we've used elsewhere. If we go and have a look at the tag search service, for example, no, that's the wrong thing. We don't want to go in there. Let's close that. The tag service here. So this is very much the same kind of idea. Except in this case we bring a lie lookup rather than an iDictionary. Night 03, I'll just call you night rather than use the numbers. Async all the way down, yes, if you're stable. So night says don't need to go that far, just a SQL connector and factory, so that using could be still be where it is, but the creation of the actual connection is delegated to the factory. Absolutely. And FuelSnable wants to go even further. He wants to kind of refactor the whole thing into a nice little reusable component, which I'm sure Brendan will do. Okay. So let's just close that. Okay, so we've got our method back in channel types now. This is all happy. So this is a delegate of the correct form, and so then we can, if we look back up here, we basically do a return. We can just copy that entire thing. Actually, we're just going to return that data. And what's happening here is it's basically passing in the source ID, which is a channel ID, passing that in and bringing back, for each channel we select, it will associate the data in the dictionary with that channel. So we no longer need this piece of code. And what we can do is just have a quick check to make sure things are happy. Okay, so let's just, we don't want to go too far without doing a test. It's quite funny today. I just said that we don't want to go too far without having a test. Today at work, I wrote an awful lot of code without testing it at all, mainly because I was waiting for somebody else to do something. They had to kind of do some database work, and until that was done, I couldn't really logically test my code. But I'm under such time pressure that sitting around actually not writing the code would have been worse. So I wrote the code anyway, and I just kind of desk checked it, which is an old skill, and did a bit of rubber duck debugging on it. I've got my rubber duck next to my laptop upstairs, and lo and behold, when eventually the database work was done and I was able to actually run the tests, it pretty much worked. There was a few little kind of tweaks that made, but no major logical errors. So I was pretty lucky. But normally I wouldn't want to go too far without being able to test things. Luckily, I've got a good suite of unit tests with lots of mock objects in there, so that kind of helped me. But it's not quite the same as actually testing, doing an integration test and actually testing with the right database. Okay, so we've now got NextStream as a data loader. We've got this NextStream still here. Let's get rid of some of the chaff here and run that and see if it still works. And it does. So it's still bringing back the next stream in UTC. Now, one of the things we've done on a previous stream was actually bring back the schedule for the stream. And we can say the day of week and the local start time and the local end time. Okay, we can do that, and we get back the schedule. So here is Dev Chatter's schedule, and it's in Dev Chatter's local time. So if we put in time zone, then you can see that it's coming back in America, New York time zone. Same here for Codebase Alpha, we're getting it in Europe, London. But you can see that these times, the colours don't match, do they? I mean, we've got a UTC time here, and we've got a British summer time here. we've got UTC here, and we've got Eastern Daylight Saving, I believe it is, in the US here. What we can do, and what we did in one of the streams, was add a time zone. This is a time zone attribute parameter, and we can say that the time zone is going to be Europe/London. And if we run that now, we get DevChatter's schedule comes back in Europe/London, but we're still getting these coming back in UTC. Obviously, there's no change here because these times were already in Europe/London. We've got Noopcat now and Gareth. Okay, so what it'd be really nice to be able to do is to do the same kind of concept as this with the next stream, so we could bring back the next stream in a time zone of our choosing. Okay, so we're going to have to try and do that next. Cheers, everyone. However, there is a bit of a wrinkle in trying to do that. So let me go and show you what I mean. When we get into dealing with schedules, here's our schedule stream type. So this is the GraphQL type that we defined to actually interpret the database model. Just check chat. This signature compiles. This is fuel stable. This signature compiles, so I guess I can go at least that far async. Yes, you can do all that. Yes, yep. I think we can. I think maybe what we'll have is maybe as a separate project, we'll go and create that kind of reusable component for Dapper, so that we can kind of factor away all of those repeated code elements. But that's not for today. Okay, so as I was saying, we've got this local time graph type, and if we pop over to the channel types and look at the scheduled stream, you can see in here that we've got some code. What we're doing is whizzing through. If we have a time zone that's been sent in from that parameter, then we are adjusting the time zone. So we're using our time zone helper, and we're converting local time to a different time zone, passing the local start time, the time zone that the stream is that the schedule's in, and our target time zone. So this is going to change, say, from America/New York to Europe/London. And the reason we'll be able to do that is this is a local start time. Our local start times have this is a noda time type. They can be converted into zoned times, and if they're in a zone time, you can then change the time zone. The difficulty we have with the stream schedule, so the stream sessions, is they're not local times. They're not even UTC times. The actual type, if we go and have a look at the stream session, they're instants, so instant graph type. Now, if you haven't been with us through the whole of the this kind of series of streams based on GraphQL, you need to know that these instant graph types don't actually come with GraphQL.net. So the noda time types, so ISO, day of week, local time, and instant aren't supported natively by GraphQL. So what we've had to do is actually create our own. We had to roll our own, basically. So here's instant graph type, and so this is the equivalent of creating type handlers in Dapper. And we actually struck gold. Like I said, this again, just to kind of sing the praises of this person, Shui, who actually did this work, and we found his or her GitHub repository and kind of basically took their code and used it. The instant graph type that they created, when I copied it into the project and then looked at it, because you should always do that, don't just copy the code from GitHub or from Stack Overflow blindly without examining it. It actually used exception handling as a method of flow control, and so we pulled that out, got rid of all that because that wasn't nice at all. And that was when it was trying to convert from strings. Luckily, which Fuelstone was asking what license. I believe it was MIT, so we should be able to use it. But I have given attribution here. But if there's any kind of issues with that, we'll just contact the guy and discuss that. Okay. So yeah. So the point is, these are instants, and one of the properties of instant is it's an instant in time. You can't change it as such. You can't just say I want this instant and I want it in America, New York time zone, or I want it in Europe, London, or America, Costa Rica, or wherever. It's literally instant in time. It's a number of ticks since the eon, or the epoch, or whatever it's called. So we're a bit stuck. We can't do the same kind of trick that we did down here. We can't just take it in and then use a converter to loop through them all and change the time zones. So what we need to take a slightly different approach. And it's instantly. Initially, it looks slightly awkward as an approach, but actually, the features of GraphQL mean that it's not that bad, and it does mean when we come to write our client that we'll be able to exploit this feature, and this feature is called variables. We'll come to it in a moment. I'll show you an implementation of that in the playground, and we can see that it's actually quite powerful. Okay, so let's have a look at our stream session type, which is this one here. So we have our UTC start and end times, and we're going to want to keep those. But what we can do is actually add arbitrary additional fields as long as we define how they get worked out, how they get calculated and populated. So we're not limited by what's actually on the model. If we go up to the model, which is lives in core, the stream sessions model is a data entity. It means it has an ID, and it has a channel ID, a central stream ID, start time and end time, and a time zone database version ID. We're not bothering with this. We don't need it. We're not bothering with these two. So this one, all we're basically taking in are the start and end times and the ID and the channel ID. Okay, as you can see, here's the ID, the channel ID, whatever. Actually, let's put a bit of documentation here. So this is quite a nice feature of GraphQL, is that you can write some documentation, and then when you get the help in the playground, it does actually bring this up, and you can discover facts about the API just by kind of playing around, really. So this is the channel ID for the session. Okay. So the way we can kind of approach this, we can add some more fields, and these fields are going to be date time fields, and we're going to do the actual conversion in those. So let's try that. So if we create a field of this is going to be a date time graph type, and we're going to call it local start time. We can give it some documentation, and we can say, I don't know, what can we say? The start time in the specified time zone. And what we need to add is a comment which is UTC if none given. Okay, specified. Okay, and once again we need to create a resolver, and that is going to be, well, in fact we're gonna need some arguments. And if we've done this before, yeah, it's MIT. I thought it was Shieldstable. Where can we go back to scheduled stream? You can no, not in there. Where was it? A scheduled stream. No, not there. It's in channel type. For scheduled stream for channel type, we take in some arguments. We're taking in a time zone argument. So we can actually pinch the whole of that. We're going to do exactly the same thing here. We're going to take in a time zone, and this time, rather than being at the level of the schedule, this is going to be at individual field level. Okay, so we're going to take in a time zone, and it's going to be a string, so it's string graph type. So all of your basic types, your scalar types, are identified within GraphQL by having the word graph type after them. And it's the same here with instant graph type and ISO day of week graph types. These are graph types, but where we're creating types which are based upon our database model, we just won't use the word type after it. So it's just a convention. Shieldstable. Couldn't tell you if I've been part of a covert operation at a company to remove non-licensed code from a big application where someone could have copy-pasted some code off the internet into a sensitive path, but might have some trauma from that experience. So I'm sure you didn't do any of that then, Shieldstable. But you're glad you didn't do all that, and I hope you're recovered for not doing any of that. Yeah. Now, interestingly, there was I can't remember the name of the person who sent the tweet. But it was an interesting tweet that I read on my timeline a couple of days ago. So it was a chap who basically he had an unsolicited email from another developer who wanted this guy to have a look at his GitHub and basically comment on whether it was any good, and it would be kind of a good good portfolio advert for his work, because he was looking for a job basically. And this guy was probably as generous as most people are in the community. He said, sure, I'll look at it, and he passed some advice back to him. And basically he thought it was reasonable, but he gave him a few tips. And then a few days later, I think he was on paternity leave, so he wasn't at work when this happened. And a few days later, he decided to go and browse to this fella's GitHub again, and lo and behold, he found that the individual had actually copied all of his projects and even copied his bio, just changed his own name, and had his wife and children's names in the bio, and was masquerading basically as if he was him, and his portfolio was suddenly this developer's portfolio. And that's kind of, yeah, you saw that tweet as well. I thought it was absolutely amazing that someone had the kind of the audacity, the gall, to actually rip someone off that badly that was trying to help them. So yeah, there are unscrupulous people out there. We put our code up on GitHub as open source, and it's there for people to use and copy and but not to claim that they originated it. I mean, we've got forks. If you want to play around with somebody else's code, you fork their repo, and that's obviously it's actually a fork of the original code, and you can play around and change it, and that's fine. But yeah, actually pinching going down to actually pinching their bio as well, and just changing their own name. I was astounded. But are you ever surprised about what you find out about on the internet? I don't know. It's just like one of those things that just seems to never it never kind of fails to amaze, really. Okay. Okay, I think I've lost my stream of thought. Here we are. We're back over on stream session type. So we got our time zone. So as I said before, this is going to be, rather than at the level of the stream session, or then the level of next stream. Here, it's not at this level. We're going to decide the time zone. It's going to be at the actual field level, which sounds really bad to begin with, but it's not too bad. Don't worry. So we're going to go into the same pattern again with this resolver. So we have our anonymous method here, and we're going to say our time zone. So the time zone, our time zone, and that's going to be equal to, we need to get that argument that we've been input. So that's, once again, that's on the context, and it's on the arguments, and there's a get value, get arguments, arguments dot, it's just actually context get argument, I think. Yes, there it is. And we just give it the name of the argument, time zone. And we also, it's a generic type, so we need to tell it what type that is. And that's going to be a string. So Fuel Snowball, perhaps the code he reviewed was pinched as well. Well, yes. And this guy was just stealing other profiles up the food chain. Well, I don't know. I think, now I seem to remember that there was quite a lot of outrage on Twitter about it, and the guy said that he went back a bit later and that all of the offending code had been removed, but there was the profile photo had been replaced by a photo of a hamburger or something, and that photo was ripped off from some hamburger chain. So the guy had no idea of not exactly copyright, but he just like any kind of property. So yeah. Okay, we got our time zone argument now, and what we need to do now is kind of convert that. So we're going to need to return. So what we don't want to do is, if we don't want to do any conversions if the time zone is absent. So let's have a ternary. String dot is null or white space. So if there isn't one, we can simply return what was input, which would be the context dot source dot UTC start time. But otherwise, we want to do a conversion, and that's what we need to write next. So we need a way of converting that. Okay, so we've got a time zone helper. Now, where did I put the time zone helper? I think it's in core helpers, time zone helper. So what we need is another method on here which will convert from a UTC time, which is what the instance being represented in the database as, to a zoned time. So excuse me. So we're on to date time back, and what should we call it? Convert from UTC to convert from UTC to local time zone. And we're going to pass in an instant, which is our instant, and we're going to pass in a string which is the time zone. Okay, and what do we want back? So we need to do similar things that we've done up here. So let's grab the zone. This is going to be, so that pulls back the time zone from the time zone database, which is in part of NodeTime. That's a nice wine. And we want to use that to change the we need to use that to change that into a zoned time, a zoned date time. So var zoned zoned date. So if you're not familiar with NodeTime, it's Brendonius. Welcome, Brendonius. We're doing some NodeTime. So this is all learned from your stream. I was just about to say, if you want to learn more about using NodeTime, then there's a really fantastic stream that Brendan did. Well, must be a month or two back, where John Skeet came in December. God, it's a lot longer than I thought. So John Skeet came on stream and basically did a fantastic introduction to the features of NodeTime and also to the difficulties of time zones and date times in the real world, which NodeTime actually solves or sets out to solve. And they're quite mind-blowing problems, like having the same date and time occurring twice in the same day, or not occurring at all. So NodeTime is a wonderful library, and we're kind of exploiting it in this project to handle all the complexities of time zones, and it works really well. But it isn't exactly obvious a lot of the time how to use it. So I'm learning, and I picked up an awful lot from when Brendan was actually coding it. Yes, Brendan is saying that it's a Hadoop library because time zones are complicated. It's actually mind-bendingly complicated, and the more John Skeet went into the complications and the difficulties, the more mind-bending it became, and to the point where I actually think, well, I'm really glad you thought about this, John, because I didn't want to think about any of that. So Fjordsnabber says that in Sweden you have a February the 30th, which is wonderful. Great stuff. So we have our time zone, our zone date time, which is when you take the instant, and we're going to use in-zone and the zone on there to convert that into a zoned time. But we actually don't want a zoned. So this is of type zoned date time, NodeTime type, but we want to return a date time. So we'll simply return from that the zone date time, and we just convert that to a to date time. And we use this to date time unspecified, which means it's basically it's just a floating date time. It's not in any kind of time zone. Even though we've explicitly converted it into the time zone requested, it of itself is not going to be a time zoned date time. But that's fine for what we want to use it for. Okay, so we've got our convert function, and let's pop back over to scheduled streams. Stream session type. That's the one. And basically, if we've got a time zone, so if an argument has been passed into the query, we need to do that conversion. So we'll call our time zone helper, and we want that function. We need to bring that namespace in. So Brendan, I'll put those helpers up in the core. If you think that's where they belong, fantastic. If you don't, then we can move it to where you think they belong. But I think it's got quite a good place to have some general kind of NodeTime helpers. but you may want to have them somewhere else. Yeah, I think they're right. They're right to live in core. So we need to pass the instant in now, which is the context. Dot source. That's not schema source. Dot UTC start time. And we need the time zone, which is TZ. Okay, so what's it complaining about? So this is an instant. We're passing an instant in. Okay, right. So this has got to be a 2 UTC time. 2 date time UTC. There we go. Yeah, that's better. So basically, we're going to kind of remove the. It's basically going to be because we're returning a date time rather than instant. We're just going to convert that instant into a date time UTC because it's already in UTC. Even though I say it's already in UTC, it's not quite right. It's an instant in time which is being represented in our database as a UTC time. So we can grab all that code and we can repeat it now, and we can tidy that up. I'm sure there's some fancy shortcuts to do all this, but I'll just tab them across. I'm not quite sure where we get some strange formatting sometimes. Okay, and this has got to be the end time. So once again, we're passing the same time zone variable. It's obviously going to be. It's got to be given differently. It's got to be a separate. We can't share the same value. But as I say, it's not quite as bad as that sounds. So end time, and the end time goes in here. Okay, that looks. So the end time, the specified time zone, UTC not given. That sounds about right. Okay, well, let's give it a run and see what happens. See what's going to fall over this time. So Brendan, you didn't find time to stream today. Okay, playground. Okay, let's go to our playground. Okay, so just remove this. No, we'll leave that as is. So Brendan says he wasn't able to stream until around the time he should appear. Right? Yeah, real life gets in the way a lot of the time, doesn't it? I chose this time, 9 o'clock in the evening UK time, because my wife normally goes out on a Monday, and she goes and visits one of her friends. But typically, that friend's shift pattern has now changed, in such that now she can't see my wife on a Monday evening. But I think this is a good slot for me. The Michael Jolly, real life? What's that? Yeah, there's stream life and real life, and stream life is what's happening when you sit in front of your microphone, and real life is everything else. And stream life is in many ways a lot more fun, isn't it? You can make mistakes and they don't have consequences, but in real life they tend to, don't they? Okay, so let's run this up. So we'll add on here local start time and local end time, and we'll run that up. Okay, so now we've got if we look at the next stream times for dev chatter, you can see that because we haven't specified a time zone, then the UTC start time and end times and the local start time and end times are the same. So what we need to do now is to actually specify what time zone we want. And what we can do is we can simply copy this here, pop them in down here. And so this is the syntax that we're using. Is we're having to have the because they're instance, we can't use this kind of high level feature. We have to go down to the field level and specify them. So there we go, and we can do that. And now you can see if you look at the start and end times for Dev Chatter. So the next stream will be tomorrow, 1800 hours Zulu, but in our Europe London time zone, it's actually going to be 1900 hours. This is the local time in the time zone we specified. And we can do the same here. We can go and we can actually lose this, and we can say, instead of this, we can say America/New York. So again, copy that. And if we bring that back, then you can see now that we have it's 1800 hours UTC, but actually in Brendan's local time, it's actually 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So that's great, but there's an awful lot of kind of typing and stuff in there. And so I'd like to introduce one of the things that I mean, GraphQL can keep surprising you with the features it's got, and one of them is actually a feature called variables. And what we can do in our query, so this is the structure, this kind of JSON-like structure for a query, but actually there's an implicit query keyword that kind of lives in front of this. Oops, I've got to remove that. Nice. Let's go and try and get that back. We can just type it again if we have to. Yep, I've got rid of all. So let's just quickly populate this again. So we want channels, and we want the name of the channel, and we want the time zone of the channel, and the country code of the channel, and then we want the schedule, and the schedule has our day of week, a local start time and a local end time, and then we have our next stream, which has a UTC start, UTC end time, a local start time and a local end time. Okay, what you can do in front of the query, you can actually define a variable. So that's done with $, and we can say TZ as a time zone, and we can say that is going to be a string. Now, one of the ways of breaking this is actually to not put a capital S there. So remember, it's capital S. I think you have to put quotation marks around the variable name. I think that's right. Oops. $, no, maybe you don't. Okay, just tell me it's never been used. So we can do that. We can define a variable called TZ, and then we can actually say time zone is going to be $TZ, and we can say that the time zone here is going to be $TZ, as is the time zone for this one. And then over down here in our query variables, we can define $TZ. I'm pretty sure this is the syntax, and that's going to be it's going to be America/New York. I think that should be sufficient. If we run that now, it's actually going to use our variable value to populate that. Is that working? I don't think it is it? Oh, okay, maybe it hasn't got the dollar. No. Okay, we're gonna have to go. We're gonna have to go over to GraphQL and find out exactly what I've done wrong there. Variables. Okay, so it's quotation marks around it. That's all. Oops. So learning the syntax of this is all very interesting. So it's quotation marks around that. We pass it in, and this time it's converting. So we've got the next start time, the next stream local start time, and end time in New York time, and those UTCs have remained in UTC. So that's quite powerful, and we'll exploit that when we build our client. So let's look in chat. So real life, what is that? There's also gaming life, says Brandonius. You got a board meeting for a board gaming group tonight. Oh, that sounds a lot of fun. You're going to play some board games as well, having a board meeting. So Michael Jolly says, don't sing nearly as many sing to nearly as many people in real life. Yes, I've not heard you sing yet, Michael Jolly. So I think in yesterday's stream, I believe it was, that your youngster was in bed or asleep, so you couldn't sing. But yeah, I think, I don't know. You say I'm not missing anything, but I'm not so sure. I can imagine you being really quite a good singer, and you play the guitar as well while you do it. So wonderful. So Brendan, you don't play board games at the board meeting. That seems a bit of a shame. You should play something. You should play, I don't know. What you should do is play something like Coup, and whoever wins that, whatever they say goes at the board meeting. That'd be quite fun. Coup is a wonderful game, but it's not good, not a great game for team building meetings. We did play it once and basically ended up not trusting each other for quite a while. It was quite fun. I do like Coup. It's such a wonderful game with so few components, a few cards. Okay, so there we go. We've got our time zone conversion on the local start time and end time for the next stream. And what I would like to do at some point, not tonight though, is to actually go and add another query to the two channel types to not only get the next stream, but get the next end streams. So to say, give me the next 5 streams, or give me the skip 5 streams and get the next 5 streams after that. So some kind of pagination. I don't think we're that interested maybe in the whole schedule. We just want to know what's coming up, but we might want to display on the screen, for example, the next 5 streams that channel is going to be broadcasting. So we're going to add that in probably on Wednesday. But according to my running notes here, one of the things I did want to do tonight was to actually add in a client. So what we could do, I guess, is to actually have a client which is one of these these typed clients, where we can define, we can provide a definition of what that client actually can bring back, that can be used by internally within our DevStreams project. That library could be pulled out as a NuGet package and added into other people's clients, or people can write their own clients completely. But what we're going to do, I think, is to add a new project, and let's shut down a few of these windows. We'll keep channel type open because that tends to be something we use quite a lot. So let's add a new project. So they've got quite a few projects on here now. and this is going to be once again a .NET Core, rather a .NET standard. So this is the first time I've created a new project in VS 2019. So the class library .NET standard, there we go. So that sounds good. So we'll have one of those. We're going to call it so dev chatter, dev streams, client GraphQL. If you've got any major objections to that name, Brendan, please shout up in chat, please. So Brendan, you're saying that you're hesitant to the new project interface, but I think you like it. See long term whether there are issues with it. Capital S on dev streams. Okay, good point. Yeah. Yeah. So you're saying lowercase s in dev streams. So we've got dev streams. I think that's okay, isn't it? Is that okay now? Yeah. So it's the first time I've created a new project in it. Today I had a few issues with VS 2019. It suddenly decided it didn't know how to discover my tests. I've got something like 300 tests in the project I'm working on, and I've been using it happily all day, and then all of a sudden it decided to say, no, I don't know how to discover your tests. So that was interesting. Sting, welcome to the stream. So I don't think we've seen you before. So do introduce yourself, and a warm welcome to the stream. So this is Codebase Alpha. We're looking at GraphQL. I'll just post what we're doing into chat. So we are looking at GraphQL, and we are integrating a GraphQL endpoint into the dev streams project, which is a project which Brendonius, who's in chat at the moment, he's creating as a community project as part of his dev chatter stream. So if you're not familiar with dev chatter, then pop over there and follow that. It's a fantastic stream. If you don't follow me at the moment, then do feel free to pop me a follow, because we are chasing that target of 100 followers, and it's the best way to keep informed of what's going on. So Sting, you say you're a 33-year-old academic programmer since the age of 8. So you've been programming a long time then. That's good. And when you were a child, you were programming, which is absolutely fantastic. Yeah, I didn't start that young, basically because when I started programming, which was when I was in what we call over here, it was what's called sixth form college. So I was probably 16 plus. Microcomputers were very, very new. And basically, I was what's called a computer hobbyist. So I had a microcomputer. It was basically a bare circuit board with a keyboard soldered to it. It was called an Ohio Scientific Superboard 2, and it had basic in ROM. It didn't have disks. It had it either had 4K or 8K of RAM. I can't remember which. It might have been 8K, which was tremendous. And all you could do is program in BASIC with it. Although you could, I did eventually add disk drives and the CPM operating system. But yeah, it was my chemistry teacher which introduced me to it, and his was housed in a wooden box. His computer. So yeah. You started with, so this is Sting, he started with 386. Yeah. I remember there was a thing called the Scamp, which I think it was one of Sinclair's thing, I'm not quite sure, which had 256 bytes of memory, or 255 bytes of memory, and an hexadecimal keyboard soldered to it. It was fantastic. So yeah, Well, I've often joked that on various streams that at university I programmed Fortran with punch cards, so I do go back quite a long way. Okay, well, so we're going to create this, aren't we? So dev chatter, dev streams, client, GraphQL. Let's create that. Right. Okay. So we need to do some. We need some models which are the equivalent of the structures we get back from the GraphQL endpoint. So let's create a models folder. Okay. Which is the best way of doing this? Let's create a class in there. This will be the channel. We'll call it, rather than we have got channel type. We've got channel, which is in the core. We'll call this channel model. Okay. So let's give it some thought. We need no, we don't want a property like that, do we? Let's give it so let's go and just pop over to our GraphQL infrastructure project. Here's channel type. So we need to represent all these various pieces of information on there. So we've got ID, name, URI, country code, time zone. We've got schedule, a list of schedules. We've got a list of tag types. We've got a Twitch channel, and we've got a stream session, which is next stream. Okay, well, I'm sure we can do that. So this is going to be the ID. So if you've been on Codebase Alpha before, watching me type in properties is a feature. What else was there? Was a string name, wasn't there? What's going on in chat? See if Fuel Snable's posting something. So okay, so Fuel Snable, when programming line numbers, we thought that the only problem was that it was difficult to refactor because you ran out of numbers between the lines. Yes. So you always start 10, 20, 30 and the line numbers for basic, but then obviously you were limited what you could do. And then you saw a basic with a renumber command, and you thought all programming problems were solved. Wonderful. So what that was GW basic, was it? Is that what you're talking about there? And someone mentioned GW basic earlier. Actually, on kind of all programming problems being solved, I'll just take a glug of wine here. I do remember in the UK there used to be a magazine called PCW, Personal Computer World, and it was actually about kind of hobby computers. And I'll never forget, there was an advert in there for a program called The Last One, and its kind of strapline was the last program ever to be written was the last one, because you would no longer need to actually write any program code anymore. All you'd do is use this program, The Last One, and presumably it was some kind of I don't think it would even be graphical back then. I don't think I saw. I think Windows 286 was the first version of Windows that I ever used, and you could run a command or a DOS box, as it was then, and a clock on the same time before you ran out of memory. But yeah, that was the last one. It always makes me chuckle that someone actually marketed something and said this is the last program ever to be written. So we need some more properties. I think there was a URI, yeah, and a country code, and a timestamp description. URI. Set that. Public string country code. country code? Was it just country? Yeah, it was country code. Okay, set that. There was time zone ID. Time zone ID. Getting set. What else was there? A list, a schedule. Okay, so we've got. So what we'll do, I think, we'll just limit ourselves to next session for the moment. We'll just bring that back, and then we'll add the rest either later on in the stream or looking at the time, probably another stream on Wednesday. So public stream session. So this is going to be the next stream, and that was called next stream. Oops. Now we'll just put a to do fill out the rest of the properties. So we need to bring in stream session. So we're going to need to actually have a connection back to the core. The stream session is in core, isn't it? So let's sort that out. Add a reference back to core. And bring that reference in, that namespace in. There we go. So that should be sufficient. So we're now going to have to have a stream session model, aren't we? So we need, that needs to be a model once again, not actually the actual type. So we get rid of those for now. Stream session model, we need to create one of those. Generic class. Okay. Stream session model. Okay. So stream session model. So it starts off similar. Oh, we need a channel ID on here, do we? No, ID is the channel ID. So let's just grab that. Let's grab those two. On channel ID. We know those are on there. What else is on a session, a stream session? So stream session. Remember, we're basing this off our GraphQL types, not necessarily off the database model, because we've added our own features. So we've got UTC start time and end time, and then some couple of date types for local start time and local end time. Okay. So public instance UTC start time, getting set. So we need node time in here, don't we? There we go. And end time. So there's lots of reminiscing going on in the in chat. I wish I could kind of follow along with it. So let's have a look. So Stinger says he's been fighting the WebGL library today, which is hardware-driven JavaScript producing 3D graphics. The fight was with the skybox being a box, not a sphere. You can take a pic. So you can't post any links, unfortunately, Sting, because I actually got Nightbot set up to be its most aggressive, so it won't let you post links. So I do apologise for that, but still starting out. Can't until I've got some moderators to kind of help me out. When I get enough viewers to warrant that, I'll just wound it up to the maximum just to protect the stream really against. I mean, not that we've had anyone here causing problems. We don't tend to have that with these development streams, but you never know. Lots of activity in chat. So let's have a look. So Pure Stable was inquiring what language you were using for that, Scala or C++. Okay, Rambling Geek is saying no. So Pure Stable is saying that he worked at a place that due to some creative use of templates, presumably C++ templates, the software took 12 hours to compile and required a lot of memory for that time. Now you love your C++ templates, but you've learned that it's good to hide the magic inside compilation units so it doesn't spread. So I think you were talking about compilation speeds on Gareth's stream yesterday and talking about templates. So I can't pretend to understand what template is. I haven't actually looked into what they are, but I know they're kind of pretty pervasive in C++, in modern C++. So I'll be interested to investigate that at some point. But wonderful to see such lively chat today. It's fantastic. Okay, so let's continue with this. So let's just copy these two properties. This is going to be a date time. Date time. Spell. Date time. That was our local start time. And date time. Local end time. Let's sort out that. There we go. Okay, so we've got our channel model and our stream session model. So that should be sufficient to actually bring back some information about a channel and their next stream time in a client. So Pure Stable was saying that templates are Turing complete generics. Okay, I can understand generics. It's the Turing complete bit, I guess, that I'd need to think about. I'm missing a semicolon, am I? There we go. Yes, I am. So I think Gareth on his stream created a kind of a mini bot which enabled people to sound a hooter when they wanted to get his attention because he'd made a mistake on a line. So I think I want something along those same lines in my bot, but maybe something which I don't know, interacts a bit more, tells me what line number it is or something like that. So yeah, interesting. I've got to give some thought because my bot is fairly kind of it's kind of basic in some ways. It's got some nice features. It's got its ask anything feature. Its exclamation point ask command is quite fun, and the text adventure that's in there is fun. Actually, I want to work on that on stream at some point because it's kind of half built, and there's several features that need to be kind of built out on that. Yes, so that was I was thinking, Brendonius, is to somehow some kind of I don't know, an extension where someone could say, exclamation point line 23, and line 23 would be highlighted in some way. I think that Jeff Fritz did something along those lines, but it may have been Visual Studio Code. Clarkio's VS Code plugin. Yes, I thought it was a VS Code plugin. Wish you could post a link into Discord, Rambling Geek, and if you're not actually in my Discord, then go and introduce yourself over there. So there's an invitation to the Codebase Alpha Discord, and also if you need to catch up on previous streams, they're all archived to YouTube, and my YouTube channel is actually in chat now. So go and subscribe over there, and you'll be notified of each video as it gets posted. And it's basically posted exactly as it occurred on stream. So warts and all the derpy moments are all there for you to have a good laugh at. And you can feel, maybe if you start streaming, if you're having a good laugh at my derps, you can kind of feel sorry once you've actually tried to do this for yourself. It's quite an interesting exercise. I think it's good preparation maybe for presenting. Not sure. I've never stood up in front of a conference. I've just stood up in front of small gatherings, but you can make a lot of mistakes, and it's quite harmless on stream. you just feel a bit kind of embarrassed. But I think the mistakes and the solving issues live, even if they're derpy issues you've created yourself, is really part of the kind of charm and the interest of live coding streams. If you want to go and see something slick and polished, go to a conference demo. But I'll thank you, Ramlingit, for posting that link into Discord. We'll check that out. Yeah, live coding full of dirt moments. Sprindonis has posted into chat there. That's absolutely right. Okay, so we've got our models. So that looks fine. Okay. So let's go and create a client. Okay, so we're going to want to bring in a package for GraphQL client. So let's go and build that in. So we'll go over to our NuGet packages, and we want GraphQL client. We find it, there he is. So this is the GraphQL client we're going to be using to install that NuGet package. So you have to leave now, Brendan. That's thank you for popping in. That's wonderful to see you in chat, and have a great board meeting, and make sure you don't end up playing any board games. So take care, and we'll see you perhaps tomorrow on stream. Okay, let's bring that in. Okay, so we're going to want to rename this now. So where are we? There we are. So let's create. So what should we call it? It's going to be a channel graph client. And if that's not a good enough name, we can change it later. So it's a graph client and it deals with channels. Channel graph client seems a reasonable name. Okay, then what's this light bulb one thing? Okay, fair enough. Okay, so we want a constructor, public channel graph client. And we're going to have to pass in a GraphQL client. No, just a GraphQL client, please. Yeah, we need to bring a namespace in for that. Come on, show me. Okay, there we are, using GraphQL client. And private GraphQL client. I thought my typing had improved, but obviously it's getting bad again. Okay, there we go. So we're going to need to define now what the client can do. So rather than bringing back all channels, we'll just limit it initially to bringing back a named channel. So we want a public method on here, be an async task of channel model. And we need to bring those namespaces in. Come on. Check the channel model. There we go. And this is going to be get channel. And it's going to pass in an ID. So the channel number that we want, so channel 1 for dev chatter, channel 2 for Codebase Alpha, etc., etc. And we can pass it in the time zone we want. String. And we can default that to string empty. Okay. Okay. So that's going to return a task of channel model. So this is where we need to look at the what you do with GraphQL clients. So we need to define a query, and this is going to be Calvin A. Allen, thank you for the follow. Wonderful. That's fantastic. So here we are. We're kind of 89 followers now. We're heading really kind of towards that 100 goal. And when I started this in February, I just never imagined we'd get this far. So thank you very, very much, Calvin. That's very generous of you. You don't know how much I appreciate the followers, because it's just like it's uplifting for a streamer to get those follows. So thank you very much. Okay. So we just need to have. Let's just get rid of that. We'll leave it like that for now. So what do we do next? So we want a query. And this is how we define the query. It's going to be a new GraphQL request. So this is the equivalent of us typing into the playground what our query is going to be, and but it's in the kind of it's programmatically doing that, but it is basically just going to be some text. There's nothing kind of magical about it. We're going to just define it as a text string. Okay, so let's bring in that namespace. Right. So we've got a couple of properties on here. One of these is query. We've got operation name, query, and variable. So we're going to have a query, and that's simply going to be a string. So this is kind of reminiscent of the Dapper way of doing things, really. Sorry, Chris. I think you probably tried to post a link in there, and so I say Nightbot is aggressive and won't let you post any links at the moment. So it's still in a branch and still work in progress. So what's that in reference to, Chris? Sorry. Were you replying to a question in chat? Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, post it in Discord, and then I can respond there. Oh, the VS line highlighting. It's a branch and still working. Oh, that's fantastic. And is that Clarko? Because if it is, that would be wonderful to kind of exploit that. Put the link into my Discord, and I'll go and check that out, and so we can do in the future stream to maybe include. Oh, C# Fritz. Okay. Oh, right. So that will be up on YouTube, the development of that. So I'll go and seek that out. Maybe I'll talk to him over on the Live Coders Discord as well, because you'll know what the state of that is, and whether it's in a position where we can just kind of fork his repo and maybe have a look at what it's done. Okay, let's get on with this anyway. So so it's the same kind of syntax as we used in the playground. So query, and what we do within the GraphQL request, and what you can do within the playground as well, is you can actually name your queries. So in the playground you can have multiple queries and execute them all at the same time, and you do that by naming the queries. So we're going to call this just channel query. If you remember, we had a variable. So we had we've got two variables. We've got an ID and a time zone. So channel ID, and that's going to be of type ID, and we need to make sure we always get a channel ID. So we need to indicate this is a required value, and you do that with an exclamation point. So the ID exclamation means it's ID graph type that's going to come in, and it's required. If you don't supply it, then it's not going to work. And then we need the time zone. This is obviously not required. If we don't pass a time zone in, then we simply get the channel, the next stream back in UTC, and string, and it's capital S. Okay, so there's that, and then we have our opening braces and our closing brace. Let's make sure we get that right, and then we follow the syntax exactly as we would if we were writing this query in the playground. So we have ID, and that's going to be $channel ID. And then we've got another set of braces. Inside there, we define what fields we want to bring back. So we're going to work under ID, the name, what else do we have? The URI, the country code, and time zone ID. Time zone ID, not zone. Okay, so that was the channel information we wanted. And we also want to get next stream. So next stream. And then we want to have, once again, the brackets. And we'll just bring back the local start time, and remember we've got to put in there our time zone variable. So time zone is going to be $TZ. Is it TZ I got? Yeah, TZ. And also the end time, the local end time. Local end time. Okay, that looks okay. And we need to find our variables. So the variables is going to be just simply a new anonymous object, which is going to be channel ID, and that is equal to this ID up here, and then the time zone, which is this time zone here. So it's actually TZ. TZ is going to be called that. Looks okay. So that's our query. Okay. So what we can do now is fire that off to the to our client. So the response from the client is going to be equal to the client dot. Oops. So it's getting late in the UK. My typing starts to fall apart. So the client, and on the client we've got a get async. So, but we want to post it. We'll do a post rather than get. Post async. Let's send the query. Oops. And we're going to need to await that because it's asynchronous. Okay. Once we get that back, then so this response is a GraphQL response. So so we'll return. So we won't bother with any error handling at the moment. We're just trying to return this because I'm conscious of that we're kind of heading towards top of the hour here. So the return response, and there's some good features of response. There's this get field data field as. So what this is going to do for us is it's going to help us automatically map our what comes back from GraphQL onto our model. So onto our channel model object that we've got defined up here. So this model here, it's going to come back and it's going to fill in all these fields for us by doing an auto map on it, and that's all built into the GraphQL client. So this is going to be a channel model, and it's going to be identified by the string channel. So it's going to know that it's going to take this bit and it's going to map all of that data automatically to our object for us, which is quite nice. Okay, so it's going to return that for us. So let's just build that and make sure we've got no compiler errors. Yep, it's all happy. Remarkable. What dare I say? It's even inconceivable. Okay. So let's do what we did before on our API streams, our web API streams. Let's create a test client. So let's have a new project. So add a project. This is going to be a console app, .NET Core console app in C#. We'll call it test client. That looks okay. Okay, so in program here, I'll get rid of that. We're going to put a dependency in there on the GraphQL client. It's in our project, so that should bring in our hard-coded, not hard-coded, our strongly typed client. So let me just fire up the project so I can get the endpoint we're aiming for. So here it is. Let's grab hold of that. Now, if I go back into the project and go to the startup class for the web project, no, it won't be in there. It'll be in our register GraphQL area. No, it's definitely in the startup. If we go down to the configure method, you can see that here that GraphQL is going to be listening at the /GraphQL endpoint, so we need to use that. Okay, so endpoint is going to be equal to a new URI, and it's going to be listening at that /GraphQL. Okay, so we'll grab a new GraphQL client. GraphQL client. That's equal to a new GraphQL client for that endpoint. And we need to bring in the namespace there. There we go. And there we can actually create our strongly typed client. So this is our channel graph client, and that's going to be a new channel graph client. And we're going to, in the constructor that, we pass in our GraphQL client. Okay, let's sort out the namespaces. It's really weird that. Like, that light bulb just wants to go away. So that's GraphQL client. Okay. Let's set our time zone up as a variable, and we'll use Europe / London because that's my current time zone. And then we'll say what should we do? Our result is equal to channel graph client get channel. That's what we defined, and we want dev chatter channel 1 and our time zone. And let's just print out the results, and we can run that up, and then that's probably enough for the stream today. So let's just console write line that out. Result.name. So it's async. We need to just make that synchronous and get the result back. So this is now a channel model. So result name, ID of just get enough information to so that we know actually getting the right channel data back. So console dot write line. What else do we have? The URI. The dollar in there for some string interpolation action. This is results.uri. Bottom here. Okay. And console.writeLine. We'll put that time zone that stream is in. Streamer's time zone is going to be the results.timezone ID. And then need to close that curly brace off, and then we'll have console.writeLine. You never thought you're sitting there watching me type console.writeLine over and over again, would you? What we're going to get next? What we'll do is say we're going to get next stream in time zone time zone, doesn't it? That's what we passed in, and then console.writeLine again. Start time local time. Oops. copy that line for brevity. End time. That should be sufficient. Basically, what we've written the query to do is to bring back some details of the channel and the next stream in a requested time zone. So, Chris Jones, do you not use CW tab snippet in Visual? Yes, I could. Okay, so I've got a confession to make. So initially, it was my stated aim that I wouldn't use shortcuts. That I would type things out as if, you know, for people. This is supposed to be a stream that's beginner friendly, so you don't know any shortcuts. So I was going to type everything out. But as you can see, my typing on stream tends to be a bit erratic. And so what I've done, I've actually bought CodeRush, and that's got lots of these templates in. I'm still learning how to use CodeRush, so I'm not kind of using it on stream at the moment. However, next Monday, the plan is that Mark Miller from DevExpress is going to be coming on stream to teach me how to use CodeRush, at least some of the initial features of it. After which, it is my intention to start using more and more shortcuts, but there'll be CodeRush ones. So it's a bit of a kind of reversal. So initially I was going to type everything in. I was going to write everything from scratch, and I think writing everything from scratch is probably going to be an overarching feature of Codebase Alpha. But because I spend a lot of time kind of backtabbing and correcting mistakes, which is a bit embarrassing for me, but also probably quite frustrating for you, because they're probably there screaming, "You've just typed that wrong," and I don't notice until about 20 minutes later when it doesn't compile. I thought that I would invest in a productivity tool. Now, in the past, I've used ReSharper an awful lot, but it's expensive. It slows Visual Studio down something rotten. And I've seen some of the kind of templating features of CodeRush used on Mark Miller's stream, and they're really impressive. So I decided to invest the kind of small amount of money which it costs to get an annual subscription to CodeRush, and to kind of incorporate into the stream. So yeah, I'm going to be looking at something like Karnak to demonstrate what the key presses are, but most of them actually aren't that different from normal Visual Studio. All of the kind of hints and things like that are the same from the light bulb, except you get additional hints. But there are quite a lot of templates, code templates, and that's when the main kind of learning for me is going to be, is learning all those shortcuts. And there's some fantastic ones. The ones I saw Mark Miller using with XAML just kind of sold the whole thing on me. He types G 3 times 2 and then hits the space bar, and it puts all the XAML in for a 3x2 grid. And I thought, well, that's just like such a time saver, and some of the very clever kind of context sensitive features it does as well in that kind of sense. Not that I'm going to be writing in XAML. I've never written a line of XAML in my life, so that's probably something for a future stream to kind of drag me kicking and screaming into the modern world of desktop stuff. But yeah, I've decided that I want to kind of to work with CodeRush and see what that can offer on stream. If it doesn't add any value, then it's something I'm going to use at work, and I will continue on the stream with typing everything in. But I think it might help to cut some of the frustration out with of spelling mistakes and just bad typing on my part. It's just the pressure of trying to think and type and talk at the same time on stream. It's just like it's very apparent when I watch these videos back that I sometimes don't make a lot of sense when I'm typing. So hopefully that might help. It might actually make things a lot worse. You never know. But there are some really cool features with it, and it may help to kind of demonstrate what you can do with these. Yeah, so Rambling Geek said I'm being hard on myself and doing a good job. Well, yeah. It's just that I watched back some of the things, and I'm thinking, you just made a spelling mistake there, and 20 minutes later you haven't noticed, and then that all comes crashing down, and then you have to go back and fix all that. So partly this might help. It won't fix all the spelling mistakes, but also this idea you'll be able to kind of call out and say, "Oh, go and look at line 19. You've made a mistake there." Would be really good. It gets a bit of interaction as well with the chat. So those are the kind of plans I've got, but I'm not sure how long it's going to take to actually get all that kind of stuff in place. Okay, well, let's put a console read line on the bottom of this. So I've got read line, and let's give it a go and see if we've got a working client. And what we'll do on Wednesday is expand the client so that it gives more and more information, and then also add a few queries to our GraphQL infrastructure project. And then I think we'll be ready to have a quick run through all of the code, make sure it's refactored and looking nice, and maybe even produce the PR on Wednesday. We'll see how far we get. If the PR either on Wednesday or next Monday after Mark Miller's segment on the show. Okay, let's run up this project. Let's get the website running. What's the time now? Nearly 11:15. Yes. Okay, there's the website. Let's go and run up the test client. Debug. Start your instance. So is it going to work? No, it's going to crash straight away. So what happened is one or more errors occurred. Cannot provide runtime binding on a null reference. Wonderful. So what's null? It was all going so well, wasn't it? So it's coming back from the actual my definition of the so let's stop this. Let's stick a breakpoint into the channel here. Let's see if we can see exactly what's going wrong. Okay, start that up again. And then let's start the test client. So what have we got here? Name URL. Oh, I've got a comma in there, look. We don't want that comma in there. So let's get rid of that comma. Let's see if that fixes the problem. Okay. I think Rambling Geek, there's a tendency to be hard on yourself as the streamer. I know that when I watched Robert Tables, he thought he was sweating on Sunday, and he did a fantastic job. And you don't tend to realise yourself. You tend to concentrate on what went wrong, and I guess I should be a bit more relaxed. But what are we now? 15 episodes in, starting to kind of get used to the idea of streaming. It still feels a bit alien sometimes, so I want to try and make it as smooth but real for the viewers. And I guess making loads of spelling mistakes doesn't tend to be that realistic, but maybe it is. I don't know. Maybe it is. So did we get a response? Looks like we did. No, we got an error. So the error was okay. Can't read that error. Let's have a closer look. Come on. So we should have put the error handling in, shouldn't we? Syntax error. Expected a semicolon. Accepted a colon. Found a slash n. Okay, so where have I made that mistake? Oh, here it is. It's an equal sign. Look. That's an equal sign, and these should be, I guess we'll space these out. Just make sure. I'm sure it doesn't make any difference, but we'll make sure they do that. And there. So let's try that. Now what we'll do is just stick the breakpoint there. So spelling mistakes, you see. Equal signs where there should be colons, commas where there shouldn't be any. Yeah, so when it says that you understand, I think we need to know it's okay, if that makes sense. I get a little stressed out at times, but look, a complete fool. Yeah, it is okay, isn't it? Because that's what people come to live coding streams for. There's two things they come for, I guess. There's three things. They come for kind of entertaining chat, and that's something which kind of builds up over time as you start getting the regular viewers and more viewers, and chat gets lively, and we start getting interactions. Maybe there's games, or the bot kind of is a bit more kind of smarter and fun. There's the actual content, which people might be interested in, or just following along. And then there's actually seeing you solve issues, solve problems that are real world problems that happen to real devs every day. I think I posted on Twitter on Friday. I spent like 5 hours yak shaving, just trying to solve problems which are nothing to do with what I was trying to work on. Just completely being sidelined all the time by silly issues, and there's nothing more frustrating. But I'll never forget watching Jeff Fritz fight with Git, and he just kept on and on, and he really kind of persevered, and he solved the issue, and it was fantastic. So if you do run into issues with Git, there are ways around it, and if you kind of work at it, you know, you're going to get through it. It's not like you should throw in the towel and give up. Yeah, people do. You know, Dan Geek saying he comes to meet like-minded people as well. Yes, that's very true. And you also learn a huge amount from people viewers who are contributing to chat. I mean, Fuel Snowball is just like an endless source of interesting information. Just think, oh, I'm going to look that up, even if it's not directly kind of part of what the stream's about. It's like, yeah, and the DevOps thing you did, Rambling Geek, and I really feel we sat there, didn't we? It was 3 hours or something, and went backwards on it, and eventually you solved it. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to kind of to be on stream, watching the stream when you did fix it. But it's fantastic that you just keep on going, and these are real problems that people face when they start using Azure DevOps, because it's opaque. It isn't easy to use, and I guess if you watch us live coders kind of battle through those problems and eventually fix them, hopefully on stream, in front of you, then it's a wonderful thing. It's really kind of changed the way I think about things, doing live coding, watching live coding as well. So we're still getting an error. TZ is never used in channel query. Oh, I've got, look at this. See, this is what I'm talking about, isn't it? This is what I'm talking about. I've got Zs and not TZs. Ah, dear me. Eventually the stream will end and we'll get this sorted. Let's try again. Yeah, Ancient Code, yes, Rambling Geek did get it working. And I need, Rambling Geek, you need to write your blog post, because I need to know how you got it working. I will watch back on your video and scroll it to the end and watch what you did, because I think I'm going to be facing similar kind of issues in battling with DevOps in the near future. Luckily not on stream, but at work. But I can bring what I've learned at work onto the stream at some point in the future. Where are we? Here we go. Let's run the test client again. And well, we've got data this time. So it was just silly spelling mistakes as usual. Here we go. There we go. So you can see we've got our dev chatter. The streamer's time zone is America, New York, but the next stream times are in Europe, London, and they are correct. They're 7 till 9 approximately. So we actually we actually got it to work. So that's our test client, and we can build on that next time. So let's just quickly check chat. So I'm going to get you try and get your blog post done this week. That'd be fantastic, and do post links in Discord, your own Discord, my Discord, any way you can, with those, and tweet it as well, of course, because I think that's going to be valuable information for lots of people. Yeah, summarising what summarising what you did will help us a lot, and it will do. So Rambling It says, I didn't help that my host was having issues, and at one point my site's behind Cloudflare, which is caching things. Did you ever get to the bottom of why FTP was hanging, Rambling Geek? Because that was really weird. It would suddenly go very slow. In fact, you couldn't even sense it was working at all. It was just sitting to stop. No, okay. You're going to do a YouTube video as well. That would be really good. Yes, just setting up from scratch, without kind of all the frustration. Just go through and do everything in the right order to demonstrate how it's done. It'd be a wonderful thing for you to do. Okay, so I think at that point we should have code which is suitable to check in. Let's just tidy that up. Okay, so I'm going to check this into GitHub. So it says you contacted your host people and they didn't have any answers. No, yeah, I think you had it. We kind of took the mickey a bit out of Zach, didn't we? And he was going to come back and say that with no for all answers, but I guess I guess they kind of these people aren't necessarily experts, are they? They're there to provide a customer service, and they have to go away and check all these things, and we can't expect too much of anything. Yeah, so Ancient says it's probably call center, and I think that's absolutely right. It's a call center. It's these. I think sometimes maybe AI bots might be more useful. That's what we're going to look at work. We're going to look at replacing a lot of kind of phone queries by having an AI bot, but of course the quality of the answers that gives is all dependent upon the quality of the FAQ that is running behind the bot. So, okay, well let's check this code in. So changes. So we've done quite a bit today. So we're going to check this in under episode 15. Let's commit that and sync it. And it's going to ask me for my key, and it'll do this twice. I haven't quite figured out why it needs me to undo it twice. That's that. Okay, so that's up on GitHub. I'll just post the GitHub link into chat. So there it is. If you want to go and look at the code or fork the repository or just rip off the code, that's up to you. You can do that. Not a problem. You can just take the code and use it however you want. I'm not precious about it. Just don't do what that chap we talked about earlier in trying to claim into all the projects your own. Okay, so let's just quickly look at our bot launches command, and this is all the space launches which are due in the next few weeks. The big one there. So these are SpaceX launches only at the moment. We do need to go into our bot and arrange it so that we can ask for other launch providers as well. Currently it defaults to SpaceX. So the big one is the next launch, which has now been shifted from tomorrow to Wednesday. which is Falcon Heavy and Arabsat. So even if you've never watched a rocket launch webcast before, I do urge you to watch this one. Last year, about 14 months ago, Falcon Heavy launched for the first time. Launched a Tesla Roadster into orbit beyond Mars. As a bit of a kind of a demo flight, but this one is for real, and we're going to see some fantastic views. The two side boosters are going to dual land next to each other, which is, I mean, it almost brings tears to your eyes to see it. And then the central core is probably going to crash into the sea again, I think, but this time it's going to be coming in about 900 miles downrange onto a drone barge, and it's going to be coming in hot. So that should be spectacular. And you're right, Ramley, the dual landing is just like gobsmacking, isn't it? So that's hopefully going to happen on Wednesday. It's going to be quite late UK time, I believe, so I don't think I'm going to get a chance to watch it live, which is a real shame. But I really hope it happens. It's been scrubbed tomorrow, I believe, because there's just the lightning storms forecast for the whole of Florida coast, so no chance of launching. And then at some point, we got to Starlink, which is the first launch of SpaceX's constellation of satellites for satellite broadband. We've got another Falcon Heavy launch sometime in June, which with the for the Air Force, the USAF, and I'm hoping that at some point in there, yes, you get Demonstration Mission 2, which is going to be a manned mission in Crew Dragon to the International Space Station, and that's going to be awesome. Before then, there should be a in-flight abort test where they're going to actually test the Dragon capsule's ability to blast away from a booster that's in trouble. So that should be pretty spectacular. There were rumours they were going to make the booster explode, but they may not, and they may even try to recover the booster. But I think it'll probably fall apart because of the aerodynamic forces on it. Okay, so let's stop rambling on about SpaceX, which is my obsession, and let's go and find someone to raid if there's anyone still streaming at this time. So let's go and have a look. Who's out there? Didn't want that. I wanted channel. Who's this? We got Pseudo Kid. Has anyone out there's got any preferences who we raid? I've got Pseudo Kid's the only person that I follow is actually I think he's been streaming for ages actually. If you're okay to go to him, we'll do that. Otherwise, any suggestions? Okay, let's go with Pseudo Kid then. Okay. We'll do a raid now then. Okay, so thank you very much for watching. We'll see you again hopefully on Wednesday for the early show, where we'll do some more work on this. And thank you very much for viewing. Cheers.